Lynn Onstot, and welcome to the show, Joplin Insider. This is a show brought to you by the City of Joplin to give you kind of a background or a behind-the-scenes look of current projects, services, and things that are going on here at the city. Today, my guests are David Hertzberg, our Public Works Director. He's sitting in the middle, and then his Assistant Director for Operations, Lynden Lawson. Welcome to you both. Thanks for coming out. You're welcome. So our program is going to focus on an area of the city that many may not even think much about. Well, at least until there may be a problem with it. And I'm talking about wastewater services. The city provides us the sewer services for all of Joplin, as well as some surrounding communities. And so I want to talk a little bit about how all that works, because again, it's an underground service. You don't see much. When people see orange cones, they assume it's road construction, and sometimes it could be sanitary sewer work. So we're just going to delve right into it. So David, when I refer to all of Joplin, can you give us a better perspective, like number of households or kind of the quantities you're dealing with?
Yeah, there's over 2,000 households being served, and over 30 companies, industries in the community. And literally it's a 24/7 operation. Christmas Day, there's somebody out there working, and all we think about, you know, is when we flush that things work, or when that the drain flows out, and so it's really a necessary and something that we as users have a tendency to take for granted.
Right. Now, did you say 2,000 households?
Over 2,000 households.
20,000.
Yeah.
20,000. Okay, that's all right. Missed a zero though. That's all right. I was just like, I think we have more, just because I deliver newsletters and I know I mail more than those. So that's what caught me. Well, I know it's an incredible amount of service for your division. Can give us in layman's term how the whole system works? Of course, 30-minute time frame. So we're gonna.
Right. Well, there's, you know, you flush or the water goes down the drain and goes down into the private line, and then goes into the public line. There's over 400 miles of public pipe to the treatment plants. There's 2 treatment plants, 2 watersheds, one on the Turkey Creek Basin, and then one over at the Shoal Creek Basin.
And for people at home, Turkey Creek is on the north side and Shoal Creek be on the south.
Yep. And it's a little, in the community, it's the Turkey Creek Basin is a little bigger and larger than the Shoal Creek
So a lot
Basin.
more is going into that, I imagine.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, in keeping it moving, and you know, all of the pipes and things like that, Lynden, can you tell us a little bit about what the work is out for the guys, you know, the manholes and all the other things?
Sure. So, you know, as David said, there's over 400 miles of sanitary sewer lines. So we have both of the gravity sewer, which is most of the lines go to that. Plus we have 27 lift stations around the city, and we have force mains that take it up again to another gravity line or another lift station from that point right there. We also have 4 equalization basins. There's one up at Turkey Creek, and one at Shoal Creek, and we have a twin equalization basin at the Tin Cup lift station just north of there. Okay,
can you, for those at home may not know what a lift station is or an equalization, were you going to be able to explain that?
So a gravity, you know, for gravity is obviously the water flows downhill, and for an uphill place we need a lift station, so that lift station has pumps in it that pushes that water uphill.
Okay.
And so that's why with the terrain that we have here in the city, you know, we have 27 different lift stations.
Okay. Now, do you locate those lift stations in strategic locations or wherever you can get to easily? How does that decided?
Yes and no. So some of them are easy to get to, and sometimes the crews that have to perform maintenance on it, you know, it takes a little bit to get to some of the lift stations that we have.
Well, I know in talking to you, you know, in the offices and, you know, and just through council meetings that we have to replace pipes and lift stations, we talk about clay pipes. Tell me a little bit about the clay pipes and what's that causing for Joplin.
Well, the clay pipe is an older installation.
And while you say that, I think we have a clay pipe picture. So while you're talking, there.
Yeah, and that's an older installation, and literally, you know, it handles the sewage good until something vibrates or breaks it, and then it acts like glass. And so these clay pipelines and are one of the first ones you go in and try to line and to try to take away these problems out of the system. So then also the older systems are the concrete pipes, and they aren't as good at the clay pipes as handling the acidicness of the treatment flow. But and so once again, they're one of the first things that you need to start coating and protecting with like a filter fabric process.
Excuse me. Well, sounds very complex, and I know in talking with you guys, it's kind of hard for people to understand, but we obviously know what happens when we have a clog on our end. So what happens, how do you guys know when the pipes, aren't allowing things to go through? What is the process?
Go ahead, Lynden.
Well, I'm glad you asked me that question. So most of the time, we'll have either a residential customer or one of the plumbers give us a call and let us know that there's an issue possibly on the main side. And so we'll send our crews out to go ahead and check the line. And when we do that, we always go ahead and rod the line out. We have a couple rodder trucks, and we make sure that we just go ahead. It's kind of like a punch bore. You're kind of punching the line out just to make sure if there's any kind of blockage that's in there, that you're moving that through and that the sewage is going downstream from that point.
Is that what you call potholing?
It's not.
No.
So
see, I thought I knew my terms.
So if we have to go out and do a, let's say we have a point repair. You saw that line up there where it had a hole. And so now, how do you fix that pipe? So the way that you fix that pipe is first we have to call in locates. So you call in the locates, you find out if there's anything else that's interfering with our digging to get to our pipe so that we can fix it. So there may be a gas line, there could be optic or some sort of fiber in there or something like that. And so what we do is, and you got the picture up front now, is that we'll take our Vector truck and we'll pothole where that utility is so that we can expose it, and so we know, we have it identified so we don't hit it with, our backhoe or something like that while we're digging to get to our pipe.
Yeah, because I imagine that's pretty important. We don't want to get into other utilities and cause outages for other things. And,
absolutely.
I know accidentally that has happened for us and for other contractors and such. We get those, but potholing. Okay, learned something new today. So we had an illustration of some of the current tasks that goes on with wastewater and collection system. I'm just looking at the list. Can you give just a brief overview of each one of those?
Go. You can handle that, Lynden.
Sure. So what happens, and these are some of the collateral tasks that we have up there. So we have pre-treatment program, and so we have 29 permitted industries throughout the city, and so because of that, then we have a pre-treatment program. But it also goes a little bit further than that, because we'll have grease haulers who will bring grease back to the plant, and then that's part of our pre-treatment as well, making sure that we pre-treat that grease when we get it back into the digesters and let that settle out. Plus, we have our own lab up at the Turkey Creek plant.
Okay.
The pre-treatment system is a proactive way of trying to address some of the, if you can imagine, whether it's a restaurant or they have products that may like a cardiovascular system that clog the veins,
right,
with grease or with other products, and this pre-treatment program has really reduced the clogging that happens, and thus the spillage and issues that happen with that.
Okay, well, I know you brought FOG up not too long ago to the council.
Right, so we have
What's that acronym stand for?
It's fats, oils, and grease.
Oh.
So what's happened is about 5 years ago, we started convening a meeting and talking about what we were going to do for our FOG program. We hired a pre-treatment technician who actually goes around to the restaurants. So there's approximately about 400 restaurants in the city of Joplin.
Wow.
And so every year he hits every restaurant at least once, checking their grease traps, checking the timing of when they get them emptied, and make sure that they're performing as they're intended to. Because what happens on the other end is a lot of our clogs, like David had said in the past, is you'll get a clog in the line and it's grease that stops everything up. And when the grease gets in there, then everything behind it will just start packing up and clogging up the line. And it's really hard to get the grease out, even once you kind of punch it out, because it still has to land somewhere in the pipe. And so the best part that we've decided is to be good preventive maintenance personnel to get out there ahead of time. Don't put the grease in the line in the first place.
Right. Well, I mean, and that's one that anybody that really works, in your household kitchen, you throw something down the drain, you fry bacon or whatever, and you put that grease down there, you can just see it coagulate and you just forming a solid. And so basically at the restaurant level, there's a lot more of that, I imagine.
Absolutely, and I'm glad you brought it up on the citizen side. Is that please don't put your grease down the garbage disposal in the sink that goes into the pipes, because as you said, when you run hot water with it, it emulsifies and it'll pass through the line at that point. But once it cools, then it'll coagulate, and that's when we usually have the issues and things like that.
Well, and on an advantage, the recycling center takes cooking oil now.
They do.
So it works hand in hand, that if they don't know what to do with it, put it in a can or whatever and take it on. I just use a can and throw it away as a solid, but I don't know if that's good or bad.
Well, it's better than putting it in the line.
Yes.
And using that cooking oil, like you said, we do have that container out there at the recycling center. Marianne Phillips had got that installed about 2 years ago, and it's turned out to be a very good program.
Yeah.
And that's part of our FOG program as well.
Well, that's good. Well, we kind of understand the larger area of the treatment plant and just flowing through the pipes and things like that, but obviously it has to go into the wastewater treatment facility. So can we talk a little bit about that and the plant operations? Because I've taken the tour, I've taken my kids' junior high class out there, which was a really interesting thing to watch, but they enjoyed it. It's pretty interesting. So tell us what goes on out there.
I'll start off and then pass it over to Lynden. But one of the things in our areas is that we have the mining legacy and addressing the zinc and lead and cadmium issues, and we've partnered with the different agencies, Department of Natural Resources, and have come up with some good solutions at the treatment plant that addresses and improves the environment in the area, and yet also acknowledges that there is that legacy with us. That the EPA, as you look, a lot of the areas being cleaned up from the chats.
Yes.
And still there's lead chat in places that were used in construction and bedding materials.
Well, we saw that after the disaster, the foundations.
And so there's still that legacy with us, but there's been a great effort to reduce that. I see that we've got a picture of some of the sand filter and the filter fabric operation. Lynn, why don't you walk us through some of that's going on there?
Okay, so right here on the left-hand side, those two troughs right there are both the diamond fabric filters that we have. And the two troughs on the right-hand side, right of this picture, are both the sand filters that we used to have. At this time we have a program going on. We're removing the media from the sand filters, we're widening the troughs, and we're putting in 2 more diamond fabric filters to help with the proficiency and also give us redundancy at the plant. And so what does this do? So we're not able to send out to the stream more than 24 million gallons a day, and that's because of our UV lighting that we have. However, with this technology, with the diamond fabric filters, we're able to get up to that 24 million gallons a day limit. And so usually, on any given day, dry weather, we're putting usually between 5 million gallons a day to 7 million gallons a day up at the Turkey Creek plant. At the Show Creek plant, we're right around 2.5 to 3.5 million gallons a day during the dry weather. During the wet weather, we may get during a couple days of rain 60 million gallons a day of water coming in.
Wow.
And so to the headworks, what that means is that we have to be very proficient in a way that we get the water out, the effluent, into Turkey Creek after it's been treated. And we also need to be I talked about the equalization basins, and we're able to use those as our storage capacity to put that excess water in, and then when the weather dries up a little bit, we're still pumping through the plant and making sure that we treat it. Because remember, whatever we treat through the plant is somebody else's drinking water, and that's why we're regulated by Department of Natural Resources, like David said, and also the EPA.
Mm-hmm. So do those agencies come out on a regular basis to test? Is it monthly, annual, or
well, we have
sporadic?
we have to take samples daily.
Okay.
So
Do our own testing.
Okay.
right, and so some items we test ourselves, some items we have to send to the lab, and the lab itself also sends all that information to DNR and EPA, and we also send that. So it's a very complex operation, and you know, David talked about the metals that we have here and the mining legacy that we have. So it's important to us that we do our the treating up there of our sanitary sewer the right way, and so that we're putting out the best product that we can.
Well, and you know, now that I think about it, you're right. Daily testing obviously identifies the problem right away, and so with 24 million, you know, up to 24 million gallons being released, you need to know if there's an issue right off the bat. So, again, that's pretty interesting. And how many employees are running our wastewater treatment plants? I know it's 24/7 operation. You know, we think of our public safety, you know, police and fire, but obviously when the toilets aren't flushing and, you know, things are backing up, or, you know, we're having issues, that's when we get the calls.
Right.
So,
So we have over, it's about 40 wastewater treatment employees.
wow.
So when you're talking about both the collection system and then also the treatment system as well.
Yeah, because some of those are environmental, you know, taking those lab tests and things like that. I've talked with a lot of them, and very intelligent people that know what
Right, so
chemicals mean.
well, and you know, the important thing is to make sure that we hire, you know, the best people from the region to do some of those jobs. So inside our laboratory there at the Turkey Creek plant, you know, we've had people that have graduated from MSSU here with a environmental degree, and that's important to us. Make sure that we have quality people that are working on our plants doing you know, the quality work we need.
Right. Well, I know we brought a lot of pictures out, and there was a tanker picture that maybe we can talk a little bit about. What's the, you know, you see these tankers, but I don't want to ask what they're hauling, but I guess I need to find out, what are they hauling?
No, it's part of our biosolids program, and like I said, we believe in the ultimate recycling, and you know, after that the process, the solids that come out of the stream are cooked over a period of time. Then we have a request from the farmers to use that as decomposted material on their fields.
So like a fertilizer, so to speak.
A fertilizer. And so we use that program, and this vehicle is the vehicle that hauls that product out to the farmers there.
Okay. Yeah, and you know, again, I don't think many people realize that is even an issue, you know, that there are solids to the whole treatment part. You know, they think it all decomposes, but not necessarily. And I don't even want to know what you guys find, or, you know, because you hear the stories of Barbie dolls going down the drain, or the toilet, or cars and all of that.
Well, I think, you know, at the treatment plant, so we've installed bar screens at our treatment plant, so some of those items actually will hit the bar screen, and then they get taken up and then put straight into the trash before it starts going through the treatment system. But one of the biggest things that we're not sure quite how I got in there was a bowling ball one time.
Oh my.
So, but there's all kinds of stuff that'll be in that line. You know, people drop money in there or something like that. So it's kind of a different. But we got professionals who work at the plant, so you know, they treat, you know, everything's you know, it's been in the sewage, so there's a sewage content there at the same time.
Well, I can't imagine a bowling ball, but yeah. So I think it's a very interesting job, and I'm learning a lot. So, well, obviously there's a cost to running this complex system, to treat that much water and to put it back into our environment. We recently had a wastewater rate study. What's actually the purpose of a rate study?
Okay. And basically we're evaluating the cost to accomplish future projects, future needs. You've got an older facilities that are built in the 80s, so you've got these aging facilities that you need to keep up to date
And the technology is changing.
And the technology is changing. So a rate study preceded by a facility plan that kind of tells you what's these assets that you're going to need to do in the next 5 years, and then the rate study is a way to pay for those costs of the operations, the maintenance, and the rehab of those older facilities.
Well, so I know capital improvements as part of something that the city talks about, that we have a list of the ones that were completed at the wastewater treatment plant in 2015 to 19. Yeah, and so that's an incredibly long list, and I can't imagine the dollars that it takes to run a wastewater treatment plant. What's the annual budget about? Do you know that offhand?
No, but there are a lot of projects on there, and one of the reasons that we had so many projects was because we had DNR and EPA sending us letters about different issues that we had. And so one of the things that we haven't talked about here was sanitary sewer overflows.
Okay.
And so one of the problems that you have when you have an aging system is that you'll get a clog, and that water will back up and out of manholes. So around the city we have roughly about 8,000 manholes. And so what happens is we go around, make sure that we don't have any sanitary sewer overflows. Usually when this happens is during a rainstorm. And we've touched a little bit on inflow and infiltration and how that gets in the line, but what happens is that directly affects what's happening with our system itself. And so the projects that we did, and some of these things, the Fillmore Bridge lift station, we had to rehabilitate that after the flooding. And so part of this, we got some FEMA dollars back that helped us with rebuilding that lift station right there. And we actually built that back a little bit stronger, 375 horsepower pumps instead of the 350 horsepower pumps that we had there before, and it helped us with our proficiency of moving that water along. The other thing is a parallel line for the tin cup lift station. So we have a lift station that pushes out almost 1.5 miles without any breaks before it gets to the next lift station, and then that lift station moves into that force line that force span at the same time. And so with that, we didn't have any redundancy. So if we would have had a hole in the pipe or some sort of issue with that line, we'd have to turn off the pumps and try to fix it. With this, we have a redundancy so we can move the flow, usually during the dry weather, over to the other line. Plus it gives us, the chance to go ahead and inspect those lines when we have them offline with the cameras and things like that.
Now the redundancy, that makes sense to me. When you used that word before, I wasn't quite sure, but I understand what you mean. In case one is broken or needs repairs, you can still, the system's not stopped, so to speak. So, well, again, we're talking about the rate study and all the maintenance and upgrades and things like that we need to continue to do. So, is there going to be an increase for our residents, and how's that going to work?
Yep, we worked hard to keep it as low as possible, looking at the facility plan and looking at the improvements and operations. And we're looking at April, and that increase will be 5%.
Okay.
And we've projected that out, and we're going to stay at that 5% level over the next 5 years.
Okay, yeah, because again, I think we have a list of the upcoming improvements that we're going to be needing to make. So again, same long list of a variety of things, but and what you're talking about, I think one of the calls that I get is when people are very nervous that their sewer's not working, that there's toilets. So these are very important things, because if it's not running with redundancy, I can see that now. I can use that word, I think, somewhat in the right way.
That's right.
Sure. Well, and one of the other things is that the capacity of our lines, we're not big enough to handle all the flow that we're getting, especially during a inclement weather type of events. And so with these, some of these projects right here, like the Lone Elm Interceptor project, the Baker's Interceptor project, what we'll do is we'll be able to put new line in there, in some cases replacing the concrete pipe that David was talking about before, because when it gets really old, that concrete becomes spongy after a while, and so we lose the integrity. We get holes in it, and we also get roots that grow in there, and we have different other types of problems that happen to the line. So this will give us a chance to replace some of those lines and give us the right capacity, because the other thing that we've been doing over the past 5 years are doing the cleaning TV, looking at all the pipes throughout the city. We've been smoke testing.
Right, I wanted to ask about that.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
we're getting close to the end of time, but I know we have some smoke testing pictures, so go ahead and talk about that a little bit.
Okay, and so part of that smoke testing, that tells us where we may have cracks in the line, or tell the citizen where they may have a crack in their lateral line. So what happens is we have a main usually around either the middle of the street, or it'll be in the alleys behind their houses. And the citizen, they own the line, which is the lateral line, out to the property line, and the riser that goes down to the main. And so when we do the smoke testing, this is usually an indication that there's a crack in that lateral line somewhere.
Okay.
And sometimes we've even had it where it comes through our manholes, and so we know that we have some issues in the side of the manholes, and we need to do rehabilitation of those as well.
So as we move towards the future, as we continue going on in the smoke testing, we'll probably be working with citizens and trying to help them understand the importance of watching that, right? And working with them on how to fix that.
That's right.
That's in the plan down the road. Okay. Well, I know they're giving me the signal that we're wrapping up. This has been the quickest 30-minute show I've ever done, and I think it's just because I've learned so much, and I hope our viewers have as well. Well, this concludes our version of the Joplin Insider on our wastewater services. I hope you enjoyed the show. I hope you have a great day. Thank you.